Forest bathing is a nature wellness grounding practice where a guide will typically facilitate a series of invitations that prompt participants to connect to their bodies, connect to the land, connect to their community members through their senses. It is a practice that is research backed in helping alleviate stress and create a sense of connectedness. Offering free forest bathing to the community creates an increase in accessibility. So it allows anyone in and around the area to see this practice as something that is welcoming to them and inviting to them, and creates an increase in participation. Whereas in other parts of my practice, there might be barriers in regards to ticketing sales. Being able to offer free forest bathing to the community through Brushwood Center reinforces the idea that all activities in relation to nature are accessible to people and are welcoming to people and are for everyone. An example of a forest bathing invitation, and one of my favorite forest bathing invitations, is called Noticing Tiny Worlds. And so typically during this practice, for about anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, participants will be invited to wander out onto the land on their own after have already experienced a little bit of a couple series of grounding exercises, invitations. And during Tiny Worlds, they're welcome to wander out on their own and just notice the tiniest details possible in the forest. And so really using our eyes almost as magnifying glasses to zoom in on the tiniest details of the bark of a tree, of a leaf, maybe looking under a log. And this allows us to gain and shift perspective, perhaps, on the macro, the micro, where we stand in relation to the world, and to notice how much is happening in a space. I have learned that there are still so many people who have not experienced this sense of slowness and stillness in nature. And with that, there are so many people who are so empowered by that stillness and that slowness, who otherwise might not have been able to, in regards to wherever walks are being held or pricing. And that in the process of partnering and opening the practice to community members of the Lake County area, especially northeastern Lake County, there's also a recognition in that there are spaces around the area. For example, Bowen Park is one of the places that I've been guiding regularly. And people who have grown up in and around Waukegan, where Bowen Park is located, have stated several times that they've been to the park, that they've known about the park, but they have never explored the specific space of the park where I'm hosting the forest bathing walks, and more so, never noticed how much flora and fauna was located in the space. And something else that I've been learning, which is very exciting, is that through this practice of having these continued walks in these spaces, people are beginning to show up in these spaces without me, and integrating these spaces into their daily lives for not just themselves, but for their friends or for their family members. Traditional in the sense that it is a practice that is intuitive to us all, and then non-traditional in the sense that when we think about Western healing mental health modalities, it's not your typical talk therapy, what is going on inside you, let's extrapolate. It's more so, let's get a feeling of the felt sense of our bodies, and let's discover how we can move through that felt sense and stay with that felt sense. And so for communities of color, being able to offer forest bathing is being able to offer a intuitive practice that kind of reawakens this ability to navigate the landscapes of our bodies, the landscapes of our minds, and then connect with the landscapes that we're now calling home, that we're now rooting ourselves in. And offering this more of a holistic, when we're thinking about environmental justice, we're not just thinking about the ways in which people on the planet hurt each other, but we're also thinking about the ways people on the planet are healing each other. And so rooting ourselves in the ways that we can connect to the land and embrace the land and learn from the land and grow our roots into the land. And often for communities of color, I know specifically in Northeastern Lake County, that is not necessarily something that's not necessarily a space that is always created for them. So it's very empowering as myself, as someone from the community, to be able to hold space, to create community for myself and other people in this space, and to address different health barriers that people might have in a way that is easily accessible. Because I will offer the 2-hour walk, but if someone really connects with it, I can also offer at the end of the walk, when you go home, you can continue this practice in this way. When you return back to this land without me, you can continue this practice in this way. What it really requires simply is just green space, blue space, and the ability to have an open heart to presence. You don't need to pay for it. You don't need to have insurance for it. You don't need another person for it. You just need yourself and your open heart and presence.